Welcome to the Brainerd Lakes Chamber Blue Ox Success Series, Attract and Keep Your Best Talent, a three-part series. I'm Paula Shapoulis, Director of the Blue Ox Business Academy, and thank you so much for being here this morning. We really appreciate it. And we know that this is a hot topic right now, that it is almost every single business I talk to has some challenges in this area. And so we are really excited to have Kristen Ireland and Aaron Meese from PeopleSpark Consulting with us. And you might remember them from about a year and a half ago when things really took a change and COVID hit our state. The Brainerd Lakes Chamber, I was looking back, and we had put on about 30 different webinars between March and June. And Aaron and Kristen were so gracious to have a couple of those at that time to provide guidance and to provide information that was desperately needed at that time. So I'm so happy to invite them back with us today. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. And so just to introduce them a little bit, Kristen, if you want to, there you go. Well, you can see their faces already, but there they are too. So they have, between the two of them, 40 years of human resources experience and have a passion for simple, practical solutions. In addition to co-owning PeopleSpark Consulting, Kristen and Aaron are adjunct faculty at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign's School for Labor and Employment Relations. And they do just tremendous work and I'm so excited to have them here with us today for this three-part series. So today is part one. Part two is on September 28th and part three is on October 19th. So I am going to hand it over to them in just a moment. But before we do, I just want to invite you, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. If you go to the reactions tab, typically it's on the bottom of your screen, and raise your hand. What that'll do is bring your video to the top of our list and we'll know that you have a question, or feel free to put it in chat. So we'll be monitoring that as well. So thank you once again for being here. Thanks to Kristen and Aaron. And we are, as you know, Lakes proud and happy to have all of you here and to talk about this much needed topic. So I'm handing it over. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paula. Well, Aaron and I are very excited to be with you here this morning. This is one of our most favorite things to do, truly. So we love the opportunity to be involved. We do co-own a company called PeopleSpark Consulting, and we work with small to mid-size businesses to achieve their goals through their HR strategies. And as Paula said, we focus on simple, practical. What are the things that you can do that can really make a difference? And even what we'll talk about today is one of those things, right? So over the course of the next 3 sessions, we will talk about a lot of our favorite tools. Today, we are going to focus on one favorite tool as we move into this. And as Paula said, we love questions. So please add your questions in chat as we go, or you can raise your hand and unmute so that we can hear your voices as well. Just a reminder, if you do, and we will actually ask you to respond to things. We'll ask questions and have you respond in chat as well. Just make sure when you respond in chat that it defaults to everyone in the meeting, so everybody can see your response or your chat. I noticed mine defaulted to Paula. So just make sure that it goes to everyone as we go through the process. So we're talking about tools. Everybody has, right, their favorite tool. I love this list of tools. So, and Aaron, I had to laugh when I put this together because I'm going to guess, and I'll let Aaron explain it, that your favorite tool on this list right here is the Allen wrench.
It is. I have probably an irrational enjoyment of putting together furniture from IKEA. And I don't know why I enjoy it. The more challenging, the better. And even if I make a mistake and have to take things apart to put it back on, yes. So Allen wrench, I would agree. The second runner-up would be my Phillips.
All right, we'll see. There you go. So everybody's got their favorite tools. This, as I said, that we will cover today is one of our favorites. And the reason it's one of our favorites is it's a twofer. So we will really focus on the pain point that you're having right now, or the pain point that we're hearing from a lot of businesses is not being able to find people, right? Not being able to find talent. It feels like at some cases you're just looking for somebody who, can fog a mirror or has a pulse. And that's kind of then we'll bring them in because we're so short in that labor pool. So we will focus on that side, and then we'll switch it and say, okay, now this same tool can be used to attract and retain your high performing employees. So it'll engage the people that you currently have on staff, the ones that are helping you through this right now. So we'll look at it from two perspectives. So we are going to jump in, first of all, and talk about really that recruiting. So I'm going to put up how many not raise your hand, but type yes in chat if you have seen these types of postings, right? So these are actually postings that I pulled from Facebook, right? Yes, we see them everywhere. Every business has signs in their windows, now hiring, now hiring. This, again, was taken from Facebook, of just ads that I have seen come up in Facebook, right? Now hiring. Here's what we're looking for. Here is what we pay. Now hiring CNAs, light housekeeping, currently hiring for 2 line cooks. I do like this one in the top left. They actually say thank you at the end of that, right? And so what do you notice about all of these that are coming up on the screen? So chat in, what do you notice about the postings? What do you see? What do you notice in all of these? They all look the same. Yes, they do. And I have to admit, there are some, they all say need. We are totally going to get into that next week, Jill, as well, right? It's all need. We are now, right? That sense of urgency. Nothing stands out about any of them. Now, I want to qualify this with many of these did also have pictures that were associated with them. The pictures were stock pictures, pictures of the logo, or pictures of the external of the business. So even with the visual pictures that came along with the ads, it was kind of still more of the same that we have. So if you are somebody who is looking for a job, how do you decide which of these you go for? Very task oriented. Yes, Robin, very much so. So if you are somebody who's looking for a job, what do? Which one do you tend to apply for? Everybody's thinking hard about this one. I have to say, in my mind, none. Because it's not one stands out. Or you apply for everyone if the application process is easy enough, or if you think that their pay is there, right? But then you're applying for the wrong reasons. But none of these stand out, and yet these are the messages that everybody is getting. Now, here's another ad that was recently posted on Facebook. What do you notice about this ad? What stands out to you about this ad? It's a cute dog, right? First of all, cute dogs always get more attention. It's funny. Thank you, Alex. I full on laughed when I saw this ad. Full on laughed, right? I want to come back quickly to this, to your comment, Jenna, about these also look like paper ads, right? It's almost very dated in that way. And yes, it does kind of look like a dating profile there, but you all out laugh when you look at this one. So this is actually Russell Feed was a client of ours a few years ago. And this popped up on my news feed, and I laughed, and then I sent them an email to give them kind of a kudos on that. I thought this was a really impressive way to differentiate themselves. But what it also does is it tells you about the business. What does it tell you about this business and how they operate? What insight does it give you about what the business is like? Does it tell you anything about the business? They have values, right? They're not too serious. They're fun, right? And they have a sense of humor, totally. That's why when I look at this, this is what I would apply for. I want to work. I can tell you as an individual, I want to work for someplace that's fun. And it's interesting when you watch the now hiring ads that are out there, that a lot of them say that they're fun, but then your experience is not fun. So I actually recently stopped at a gas station. I was headed to South Dakota, and I stopped at a gas station, and there was a sign that said, now hiring, come join our fun, creative working environment. And I was like, oh, fun, creative working environment. And I walked in, nobody was talking. Nobody was laughing. I mean, it was direct opposite of what they were saying. So a lot of ads will then say, well, we're fun, or it's a team environment, but there's nothing in there that would indicate it. This to me sends that indication. And I am not at all saying that you need to be fun in your ads. What this is doing is differentiating yourself based on who you are. So maybe it's not the sense of humor. Maybe that's not the culture that you want to have or promote in your business. But what is that culture, and how can you differentiate yourself in the ads to define that culture? This one attracted to me because I do want to have fun. Erin and I have that on our quarterly goals consistently since we started the business of having fun. Because if we're not having fun, why are we still in business? Why are we still doing this? So fun is high on my radar. So this appeals to me. What is your environment? And how can you differentiate it so it appeals to the people that want that same thing? Erin, what would you add to that?
Well, what I would add here is that even in this posting is still giving a good sense for some of the nuts and bolts of what is expected in this role. That this is somebody who needs to be able to operate a fork truck, that this is somebody who needs to be able to lift 75 plus pounds, and they're going to be working outdoors in a hay barn. So it's not discounting or making light of some of the more serious expectations of the role. It still is being very clear in that, and talking about how the business likes to operate with and among its team overall. And so even to Kristen's point, to reinforce that, they're just making those connections to the work that you do, the work that your business does, and the type of meaning that it creates for your customers, the types of meaning that it creates for those people that your business touches could be a really good way to start making some of those connections possible. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And a lot of this is, so when you are thinking about your ads and what your ads look like and how you attract, it's really putting on your marketing hat. You hear a lot in marketing about, who is your ideal client? Who is your target market? As a business, who is your target market for your employees? And you can look internally at your own employees to get a sense of what that is. Who are my own internal employees? Who are my employees who are taking initiative, doing 110%, going above and beyond, servicing our customers to the highest level? Who is that employee? And what's important to them? Because that will tell you what you should include in some of this information. So usually the next question that we get when we show this example of this ad is, that's great. That's great. How do I do that? It's really wonderful to see somebody do that. How do I do that? Either we usually get I'm not that creative. I don't have time to be that creative. I'm short-staffed already. I don't have time to be that creative. How do I come up with this? So the bottom line is you ask. I mentioned, as we talked on that last slide, about who are your people who are doing really well? Who are your employees? People have rock stars. Type rock stars in chat if you have at least one rock star employee in your business. This is the employee that you wish you could clone. If I could just get 5 more of this person, if I could just find another, right? Look at all those rock stars. I love many rock stars, right? You have all of these rock stars. they have that's your target market. That's who you want to have. You want to attract more people like your rock stars. So if you want to figure out what content is going to be important to put in your ads to attract those kind of people, ask your employees, ask the ones that you have now. So here are some of the questions. So this next step, this is the tool that we're talking about. The tool is the questions. I said that we would talk about one specific tool. The tool are the questions that we're going to go through here. So here are some of the questions. Questions to ask. What does a great day look like? So ask your rock stars, what does a great day look like for you? What do you like about your current job? What do you like most about working here? What are you most excited about doing in your current role? You can also ask, those are a lot of the likes. You can also find out what they may not like so much. What have you been most frustrated with? What are you least excited about? If you could change one thing, what would it be? And what would you do? What would you love to do that you're not able to do in your current role? So I want you to think about these questions and pick one. Type one in chat. If I asked my rock star employees, or many rock stars that you went through, if I asked my rock star employees one question, what question could it be that will help me differentiate myself in my ads? What one question do you think would add the most? It's one thing. What do you like most about working here? Yes, for sure. What's another one? What does a great day look like? Right? What makes you excited about coming to work every day? So thinking about that in terms of what would you, I'm going to come back to that, this last one about what would you love to do that you're not able to do in your current role, right? We'll come back to that one as well, because that one stands out in a number of different ways. But if you just sat down and asked your rockstar employees, what does a great day look like? What do you like most about working here? It gives you some of that information you can use in your ads. There are a few more questions here, so I'm going to ask you to do the next thing on this slide as well. Which ones stand out to you on this one? So you could ask questions like, what skills have you learned since you started working here? What skills do you have that we haven't utilized? That's one of my favorites. What skills would you like to develop? What are your career goals? What types of recognition have you received that you feel acknowledges your accomplishment? And what accomplishments are you most excited about in your job? So similar here. What's a question? Which one of these questions could you ask your rockstar employees to give you that content, to give you that information, to create your differentiating posting, the one that makes you stand out? What skills have you learned, right? What recognition have you received that acknowledges your accomplishments? What are your goals in the future? There's so many great connections here that if we stop and ask our current employees, you can use that information to really differentiate yourself for the types of candidates you want to attract, so that when they're looking at that entire page, they're going to go, oh, I want that one. One of the other examples that I've used is I saw a posting one day and they were looking for an admin assistant. And the title was, do you want to be Alfred to our Batman? And I was like, there you, right? It differentiates you. It makes you stand out, and it tells the person what kind of an organization or what kind of culture you have in your organization. Erin, what would you add to this?
You know, we're going to cover this in a little bit too, but one of the things that I see leaders sometimes pause on asking or start to get hesitant on asking is, I don't know if I ask this question, how my team members would respond, how my employees would respond, and what if I don't know what to do in response to some of their questions. So if we're talking to them about, you know, things that we haven't utilized of their skills or things that they want to develop. And so we see them kind of pause and hesitate in actually asking these questions, where in sharing this information with your team members and sharing this as part of just recognizing that, hey, Laura, hey, Bob, we so value having you a part of our team. And we know that we've been a little bit short-staffed and we're trying to find new team members. We want to find people who have a lot of the same skills that you have, and who would be really great to work with. And so because of that, we want to learn a little bit more about some of the things that you really love about your role, or the things that you wish that you would change. Because one, we want to continue to build a great environment for you. And we also want to make sure that how we're messaging these positions out there is being messaged in a way that's going to tell people what we expect and what we want to see, to support all of this, where this is a way for us to really engage you as a part of it and to give them recognition for it.
For sure. So Erin and I, and some of this is, these are the questions to ask, right? These are questions that you can ask, a couple that you can have at your fingertips that you can ask as you're talking to employees. Erin and I were actually meeting with a client about a month and a half ago, and we were meeting with all of their employees. We were not asking these questions. We were actually talking through culture and values with the business. And one of the quotes, direct quote from an employee: "Your worst day here is better than your best day somewhere else." Right? And I thought, that coming from a current employee, how would that sound coming in your job posting? How does that sound as you're trying to recruit and attract other people? And that is a direct quote. And he said it in front of the other employees, and they agreed. Everybody else nodded of like, yeah, for sure. Now, the flip side of that is good news, bad news. They don't need to use this in an ad, because they're also not losing the people that are there. And when they do have an opening, this is the message that their current employees are telling others about. So they're able to really recruit by word of mouth, because this is what their employees are sharing. But this is the kind of stuff that's golden, right? But sometimes you just need to create the space. You just need to ask the question to be able to get that.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you may need to go a couple layers into those questions, because if this is the first time you're asking some of these, sometimes people's reactions and responses could be very surface level, right? Well, I mean, I like the people I work with. Okay, that's a nice, safe response to the things that you like about your job. Well, say a little bit more about that, but be sure that you're conveying the reason why you're curious and why you want to, and really the value for them, because in being able to do that, you're able to connect that to them, but you're also able to get further into the pieces that will help with some of that recruiting, marketing, and in further parts of your recruiting process.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I still love this quote. I actually don't even remember who said it in the meeting now, but it was wonderful to hear that from a business. So as I mentioned before, this is a twofer, right? So asking these questions gives you content. It helps you differentiate yourself in your marketing for new employees, because you're getting that information from your current employees. It does give you a chance to recognize your high performing employees, right? And the example that Erin gave about how you're bringing this up to your high performing employees is how you can recognize them. So here is how it could sound, right? I appreciate all the work you do. I have to move our chat here. You put the needs of our customers first. You're constantly looking for things to make our business and our service even better. I want to hire more people like you. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your experience that I could share in our job postings to attract more people like you to work here, right? So how would you feel if your leader, recognizing that in many cases you could be the business owners, but how do you think people would feel hearing this message from a business owner or a business leader? How do you think somebody would feel about that? Good, right? Part of the team, flattered, appreciated. There's so much information. There's so many statistics around the impact of recognition and feeling valued I'm going to use the terms that just came through here, feeling valued, and how they impact both engagement of the employees and retention of employees. So this is a great opportunity to have people feel valued. Here's the next like bonus add-on that you could bring, which is, how would you feel about taking on the responsibility of writing and posting these ads? Right? So you can make it, this is like a win-win-win all the way around, that you're recognizing them. They could be excited about taking on that responsibility because it's something more that they can do, another new, exciting, creative thing that somebody may be interested in. And then they'll use it in their words and their language, which will appeal to the audience that you're looking for. So that is the bonus add-on that also makes it a win for you, because now they're doing it and you're able to delegate that task and focus on other areas.
Well, and one more plus here too for that recognition is that in so many instances, and I can think of probably more examples than I would care to admit, in so many instances, it is so easy for us to leave our really great performers and our great team members out on an island by themselves because they've got it. They know what to do. We know that they're covered, that we can count on them, and they're reliable, right? And so we can walk past, because of all the other fires that need to be fought, those opportunities to give them the recognition and to pause and to share that with them. And so even just taking that moment, I can guarantee you might have some hesitation from people at first, like, why are you saying this? But what you'll see, and I encourage you even to ask some of these questions, is to watch your team members' reactions and watch their responses, even their physical responses when you share some of this information with them. Because a lot of times it feels like we know that we value them, but we don't outright say that. And we don't outright make that connection for them. Just yesterday, I was working with a supervisor on an assignment that they were working on specific to recognition. And one of the things that came up as they were delivering this recognition to this team member, the team member was surprised. So was a little bit hesitant about the conversation in the first place, because normally it feels like when my supervisor needs to talk to me, it's because something bad happened that I'm getting called into the principal's office in a way. And through the course of this conversation that she had with her team member, what she found was the leader was very cognizant of not putting more information, not putting more responsibility onto that team member. And what the team member was sharing was, well, thank you. I can actually take on more, and I'm interested in taking on more. And they were operating on very different levels, thinking that they were both doing the right thing. And so just by simply having and starting that dialogue can open up these opportunities to continue building the snowball of recognition.
For sure. Just takes a little bit of time to ask, right? So let's look at that a little bit more. So this is yes, it can take a little bit more time when you stop and ask. This is another interesting statistic. One of our favorite books is 9 Lies About Work. It's fascinating. This is one of the statistics from that book. Team leaders who check in once a week see on average a 13% increase in team engagement. Those who check in only once a month see a 5% decrease in engagement. So I want to highlight this a little bit more. So first of all, when we say check in, this does not mean we are going to have an hour-long sit down with every employee once a week. That's not what this message is intended to be. Check-in here is having an intentional connection. So it is also, checking in is also not a, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? How was your kid's football game, right? That tends to be more surface. We're not talking that. We're not talking a very deep 1 hour long meeting. This is intentional check-ins and can have that impact on employees. And a lot of times then when we talk about having these intentional check-ins, then people struggle, and especially leaders struggle with, and what do I say? What do I talk about? If I can't just ask about some of the surface stuff and I'm not getting into a ton of the detail of other things, what can I do? You use the same questions to have that check-in. So I'm going to go through the questions again. This time, I want you to take that lens of, if my goal is to engage employees, so same questions. First one was the goal of where can I get the best information for my ads? This goal of what information could I really use that would be helpful to understand and engage my employees? So I want you to take that lens. So here were the first ones again. What does a great day look like? What do you like about your job? What do you like most about working here? What are you most excited about? When have you been most frustrated? What are you least excited about? If you could change one thing, what would it be? And what would you love to do that you're not able to? So same questions, different lens. I'd like you to type in chat, which one stands out to you here? Which question would you want to ask your employees, your rock stars, to really think about, if I ask this, it would give me a great opportunity to engage them. If you could change one thing, and it's amazing what you can hear. And to Erin's point, I think sometimes leaders are hesitant to ask this question because you don't know what you're going to get. And you can state it up front of, we may not be able to, and when we talk about changing one thing, it doesn't mean that we'll be able to change it. But I'd like to at least know what it is so we can think about what we could do differently, right? So I love that if you could change one thing. All right, let's do the same thing on the next page. Which one of these stands out the most that you could ask employees with a goal to engage them? What accomplishments? Yes. What skill would you like to develop? My favorite in this one is, what skill do you have that we haven't utilized yet? Yes, eye-opening experience for managers. It could really bring light to some hurdles that they may not be aware of. For sure. For sure. Yes. And again, things that can make such a big difference. So Erin, do you want to share the example? So we actually had a client go through this process with one of their teams. And do you want to share the impact that they had?
Sure. So we talked a group through some of these questions a while back, and the HR team said, you know what, before we roll these out to all leaders, we're doing this ourselves, and just we want to get a feel for it before we're expected to coach others. And so the general manager, she asked these same questions of her team members around things that that you like or you don't like about the role, or skills that you have that we haven't utilized. And one of the things they found out, they had a brand new team member, probably within, I think, the first couple of weeks of her role. And then they had about a 10-year employee who was fine. She's fine. I mean, probably not a rock star, but maybe she's playing rhythm guitar. Like, she's not the one that's standing out. She's just kind of helping make sure that things stay on track. And what they found in these conversations was that our 10-year employee, there were some things that she just really didn't like about certain aspects of the role, certain administration of a couple of processes. And when they asked the new employee in a separate conversation, that was actually something that the new employee had brought up, of a skill that she had that she wanted to utilize or develop in. And so they found an opportunity to say, you know what, I think we're going to take this piece of her role, hand it over here, and there's a couple of elements here from the new employee that would make more sense with our tenured employee. So we're going to make that switch and work through it, because it works well for both of them. It's a win-win. And what they said was that for the new employee who had just started, she felt like she won the lottery. She was already in the honeymoon period of a brand new job and a brand new team. And so she just took off in terms of just her onboarding and her experience. And that 10-year employee, she moved up to lead guitar. So they said, we haven't ever seen her operate like this before. She was so excited that we had taken the time to do this, that she's so motivated. She is here, she's getting it done. She feels as though she's been heard, and that her skills are being best utilized in the best way possible. And it's something where, especially with small and mid-sized companies, we have so much more of this flexibility than we may have if we were a larger employer. And it doesn't work all the time. It doesn't work, sometimes those opportunities may not be as clear cut as this particular situation was. But the trick is to be consistently asking some of these questions of our team members, because oftentimes there's more opportunities out there than what we're aware of.
And there are some great questions coming in from on chat here. How do these not morph into a longer conversation than a check-in? That is always possible, that it becomes a longer conversation. One of the things that Erin and I talk about is we would not recommend going through and asking all of these questions at once. We are very focused on simple, practical, not process for the sake of process. And when you start to sit down and ask all these questions at once, it feels like a checklist. It feels like process for the sake of process, and it doesn't feel as good to employees. So what we recommend is one or two. Ask one or two of these questions. And by focusing on one or two, that will allow you to kind of, for lack of a better term, spread the love out a bit more. And those conversations won't necessarily be as long. Erin, what would you add?
Yeah. So Dre, I think that's a really, really great question. And I think the one thing I would add here too, is that some of these could be tough questions if you ask someone and you come in cold on it. And so you could actually kind of spread the process out a little bit more too and say, hey, you know what, Kristen, in our next update, there's a couple of things I want to talk with you about. And so I'd like for you to give some thought to this before our meeting. In particular, like I'm really curious to learn a little bit more about some of the things that you best like about your role today, and maybe even some skills that you have that we haven't utilized. I'd like to talk about that, but I don't want to just catch you cold. Right. So we're giving them a little bit of prep time to be thinking about it and to reflect on that before we sit down and meet with them. And so that way we still can keep it within a shorter check-in, that this is just an additional question that we want to ask. And your check-in, if it is more focused towards the recruiting angle too, could be, offering up that recognition that my intent is to try to find more employees like you who would complement your skills, who would complement other team members' skills. And so it's important for me to dig into some of this a little bit more and see how we can make sure that our messaging is consistent with that. So that's why I want to ask some of these things.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Also, great question about who best to have these conversations. So one of our other favorite statistics, which I'm sure at some point in the next two sessions, I'll bring this up on a slide as well. But so whether it's the general manager who oversees everybody, or whether it's the direct manager who is the best person to have these types of conversations with employees, the statistic that we refer to a lot is 70% of the variance between a strong culture and a lousy culture is the knowledge, skills, and talent of the team lead. So I tend to look at that then in a very black and white way, that really team leads, direct supervisors have 70% of the influence of whether or not your employees are engaged. That means by default, because I'm looking at it black and white, that means that others, HR, general managers, some of the other positions within the organization have 30 or less. So when I think about who best should it come from, to me, it's the person who has the most impact and influence. So we spend a lot of time where Erin and I focus when we're working with clients is how do we develop and build the skills in those team leads so that they can take on that responsibility of the 70%, and we can equip them to be able to have these types of conversations because they have most of the impact. Otherwise, if a general manager, now we wouldn't want the general manager to be disengaged completely. We want the general manager to be encouraging leaders to be having these conversations, having a few of these conversations as well. But if it were only the general manager, then it takes the person who has the most influence out of the equation.
Yeah, I would build on that, just that it would be an and, not an or, where the primary emphasis of where this information should be coming from would be that direct supervisor, that direct leader. And there's a really important role that that higher level leader can also play too, to help reinforce the messages. Where if there's certain information that the supervisor, that the leader has gathered from some of these conversations, how can a meeting, how can a brief discussion, even as that higher level leader is walking through and meeting with this team member, how can they reinforce that and continue to offer up recognition for the work that that person is doing? Where sometimes that additional visibility, if that is how a person likes to be recognized, could be really, really powerful for their engagement as well.
Does that answer the question? Wonderful. All right. What other questions? Are there any other questions? What other questions do you have about this? Or any like, this is interesting. And
well, and I'm even curious too. So even just kind of going back to the beginning part where we were talking about, thinking about the role that your business plays, whether, maybe it's not the piece around sense of humor or the fun. What are some of the elements of your own businesses and of the work that your companies do that stands out that might not be as well understood in some of your postings today? I'm curious around even just some of those characteristics that could be emphasized even more strongly. So if you want to type that into chat or raise your hand.
we have found that the more people share, the more ideas people come up with. Another example, this was actually 2 clients. We were having a group coaching session with a couple of clients. And one of the clients was looking for landscaping help and was having a hard time getting landscaping help. And the other client was saying, yes, we have a lot of roles like that as well, where it requires a lot of heavy lifting. It requires, you're being out in the hot sun all day. So they were sharing ideas about how they could recruit. And one of what they started to do for their postings was they were like, you know what, the people who are really good and the people who really like the type of work that we have are people who want to be physically active and use and have an opportunity to be physically active all day. So their postings, they were in different places. So they used the same posting language of, we'll pay you to work out every day. Don't spend your money on a gym membership. We'll pay you to work out every day. And that was the way that they leveraged it, because when they started to think about how could they bring, who were the best employees that liked it the most, what types of things were they interested in, then they could really tailor the language. And they also started to put job postings up at gyms.
Well, and I'm even thinking too, a client that we worked with, where one of the things that came up, because sometimes it's like, oh, well, maybe I'm kind of struggling with making that connection. What is the impact of your products or of your service? What does it do for your customers? What does it do in the environment? What does it do kind of across the country? And with this particular manufacturer that we were working with, they're like, I don't know, there's nothing really sexy about the stuff that we do. Like, we're not making food. We're not, we're making like seals for doors. We're making thresholds for doors. We're like, okay. And asked a few more questions to start getting these leaders to speak up a little bit more. And what they were starting to find and build on from one another was, well, did you know that our seals are in all the windows of the Pentagon? Did you know that our seals are this place or at that place? And you have all these supervisors looking around like, I had no idea. And so think about, even just some of those facts that you may know as a leader, just because you are so close in with the business, there are oftentimes opportunities to help share that information out, because a lot of times too, that's a part of your recruiting. What is the impact of the business and what you do? And now we can take it down to that personal level around the characteristics that make somebody really successful in those roles with your business.
Mm-hmm. Well, and great example in chat, right? Family owned and operated business, the values that were established from the business or from the beginning, that putting that into words that speak to, that's a differentiator for you. This is not a chain, right? This is not a franchise. We are fully invested in this business and we believe strongly in what we do. This is how it shows up. Are you up for the, I was trying to think of the word, the opportunity to become a part of our long-standing presence, even grown substantially in size.
Oh, I love this.
Yes. So having that mentorship, that's going to be a differentiator for you. For sure. For sure.
And to think about as a new hire going into an industry I may not know very well, to think about, going into a company, maybe I've passed the business before as I've been driving, but I don't really know what happens inside those walls. What can you do in the language and in your words that you're choosing to help paint that picture for people who are driving by to know what it is? And I love that of having buddies and offering mentorship at the very beginning, that you don't have to know all the answers. Like, we are going to put you with a buddy and make it as safe and possible for you to be successful here from the beginning. That's what we're committed to. I love that. And there's so many angles you can take in your recruiting marketing with a message like that as well.
Yes. That's the fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So as we wrap up, you can still type into chat. We'll just continue through the discussion. So what's the bottom line? It's really about putting on your marketing hat, right? We were actually just on a podcast that came out yesterday, and one of the questions and discussions that we had on that was a business owner who was saying, I've never thought about it in that way, of how much it's a paradigm shift to think about how you're using marketing in your recruiting processes and how you change that a bit. And that's what this is all about. How are you differentiating yourself? Why would people choose you over the others? And how are you attracting your ideal employee, your ideal client, based on what your current employees, what your rock stars are doing and what they like and what they love about working at the business, right? So it's really taking that marketing lens and making it a twofer, that this is an opportunity to look at how you're attracting people, but how you're engaging your current employees, because they're going to have the biggest impact. And Erin referenced this a bit earlier, but what we really see is when there is such a focus on labor shortage, we tend to focus out. I need people, I need to find people, I need people, I'm short people, right? Like, all of the focus and urgency is out, and we tend to forget who's in. And the more we focus externally and not internally, the more they don't feel valued, the more they don't feel heard, then it increases your likelihood that they leave. And then it's kind of a downward spiral. So using this same approach to do both makes a big impact. All right. Erin, do you want to talk about now what?
Sure. And I would just build on that last comment too, where there's so many things within the environment that are outside of our control, that the one thing that is within our control is what we're doing with our team members today that we want to value, that we want to continue to grow and to stay with us. And so that thing that is within your control is like what Kristen was talking about, is asking some of those questions of your team members to find out what it is that they love about their role, about the things that they want to continue to grow in, and to be able to support them in doing so, not just for your own recruiting to help fill the holes that you do have, but also to continue to develop them, because it's only going to help your business in the long run. So overall, we know that this is the start of a 3-part series with Blue Ox, and we're so thrilled about this. So we'll share this with the other sessions as well. But if there's questions that you have, if you want to talk through some of the messaging potential questions that you could be asking your team members, or even ways in which you can be looking at your own recruiting, marketing, and specifically the messaging that's going on in some of your postings, we invite you to book a 30-minute session with us so we can answer some of the questions that you have about how this applies. And the link to that is right here if you want to type that out. Otherwise, I'll just pop this into chat as well if it's easier. But that'll set up just a 30-minute phone call. It's not a Zoom. We're trying to be cognizant of not Zoom overloading people. But we would be happy to just kind of talk about with you about what those messages are that you want to convey and offer up some suggestions and ideas around different things that you could try to put into practice today as well.
Mhm. Well, and we are so excited. So the next two sessions, I think you had information about this as well, Paula, but the next session is in 2 weeks, and we're talking about a few more of our favorite tools. Now that we're going through the process, now that we've attracted people to apply for our roles, we've differentiated ourselves in our postings and our ads. Now, what do we do to make sure that we're hiring the best people? And one of the trends that we see is people are so short-staffed that their expectations, right? I referenced this earlier. Everybody's expectations are dropping. But how do you continue to uphold the expectations that you have of your employees and still hire those good employees, even in a time with a tight labor market? So that's where we'll go next. And then in October, we'll focus a little bit more than on engaging. So what else can you do to engage your current employees? And keep them going, keep your rock stars as long as you can, and even make some non-rock stars into rock stars. As Erin said, the rhythm guitar into the lead is
You like
also
that? That was my off the
that
cuff.
was I haven't heard that reference before. That was a good one. That was a good one. Erin was a music major, so she's got the good music references. Paula, anything else that you would like to add before we close for today?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for our third session, we are bringing in some local businesses to share with you what their best practices are and what they find really works for them. And so we have Laura Stromberg with Pequot Tool and Manufacturing that will be here, and she's with us here today as well. So thank you, Laura. You can wave. Hi. And then Robin Loftus too is here with us today with Clow Stamping. So she'll also participate in that. And then David Cowell with Cowell Financial. So we have a couple manufacturers that are larger, and then we also have a service-based business that will be sharing some best practices. So we're thankful that they are willing to do that and share with all of you some of their best tools as well. So anything else, Kristen and Erin, before I wrap it up?
No, it was fun to spend the morning with you all.
Well, thank you so much. I love your engaging. I love all the chat and all the information coming through the chat. It was really fun to watch and really interactive. And that's what I love about you guys. So thank you so much. I will be sending out an email probably sometime this afternoon. I'm going to upload this to YouTube and send out the link. So if you need to watch it again or share it or whatever you'd like, you'll be able to do that. We'll also have it in the swell on Friday. And then I'll also provide a link to SurveyMonkey survey. If you would be so willing to provide some feedback, some direction. As you know, one of the things I was thinking about with the chamber and what we stand or how we stand apart is we're so responsive. So happy to do that. And thank you so much for being here. And I think that is all I've got. So thanks, everyone. Bye.